Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. And welcome back, everybody. This gentleman has his finger on the pulse of things that affect us every single day. He's made it his life's work to make sure that things flow properly within municipalities, whether it's building, whether it's traffic. He's an urban planner, spent many years, retired currently as an urban planner, regional planner at the University of Pittsburgh. He's also our professional of the year and an inspiration for many looking to get into the field that he has spent many years in. Richard Golden Bickel Jr. joins us once again on the program. Hey, Richard, how are you doing today?
All right, very good. How are you, Steve?
Very well. Great to have you back here. And let's dig into something that's affecting the New York City area. And I'm wondering if it'll affect other areas around the country at some point. Maybe it is. Congestion pricing. Now, for those unaware of what that is, could you explain that, please?
I will try. If you're in Manhattan and you're above 60th Street and you drive past Central Park and enter the major center city area, you're going to be charged $9 a car to do that. And the original proposal was $15, but they had to compromise because of backlash from truckers and cab owners and others who felt it was going to be too expensive for them to carry on with. So Governor Harper originally supported it, and then with the backlash from various parties, she dropped her support, and this compromise is an effort to revive it, and it's been successful so far. There's still some lawsuits and other things trying to fight it. But the bottom line, the money that's raised is supposed to help support the public transit system in New York City, and that would be very much important.
So essentially, it's a toll that all vehicles have to pay, but the difference is it's in the middle of the city, whereby many times you pay a toll as you enter or exit the city, and I'm going to assume that it'll be some type of Easy Pass device that just scans you as you drive?
Yes, I think so, and the city was setting up the infrastructure to support the Easy Pass a couple of months ago, but then when the governor withheld her support, that some of that stuff's still in place, and this is a real experiment because the whole point is to get people to change their behavior and to support public transit and to provide alternatives to the single occupant vehicle.
So I want to better understand this because it's making sense, but it's not. So the price.
Maybe my explanation.
Yeah. All right. So congestion pricing. Congestion. It sounds like during peak hours, morning drive, afternoon drive, let's say call it 5 a.m. to 9 or 10. I guess PM would be peak hours in the city that never sleeps. You're going to charge people that premium during congested times, but it almost sounds like it's going to slow traffic down because the scanners have to hit the Easy Pass devices. And so many times I've seen tolls leading into and out of the city, New Jersey as well. Anytime you have a toll area, it just slows things down. Like that's what I'm envisioning here. What are your thoughts?
It may slow traffic down, but at the same time, there may be, if it works properly, there may be less traffic on certain roads, and more people shifting to multiple occupant vehicles, and there are exemptions. I think ambulances and other vehicles like that will not have to pay, but this is a grand experiment, and other cities in the U.S. have talked about it, but New York's going ahead, and if it works, it may start to spread in some other areas like San Francisco and Chicago.
Wow. It's so interesting. And of course, it's going to generate a ton of revenue. But to your point, maybe it will discourage some people from traveling through those toll plazas because they don't want to pay. So they'll find another way, or they'll be in high occupancy vehicles. I want to pivot from that to, coincidentally, while we're talking about the state of New York, and actually not far from the New York City area, you have Suffolk County. And actually, Long Island is where it's located. Nassau and Suffolk County both have red light cameras. And what is that for anybody that doesn't know? If you go through a red light, it takes your picture. It sends you something in the mail. It is a violation and a fine that you need to pay. Suffolk County, after, I think it was 9 years or somewhere close to that, just ended that program. Lawmakers did not renew it. There was a lot of opposition for years, people saying, it's just a money grab. It's not really more of a safety thing. Nassau County, still the county next to Suffolk, still has it in effect. However, they dropped the administrative fees. So if you go through a red light, then you're paying less. Richard, what's your overall feeling of cameras that put up fines for people that happen to go through a red light?
Well, the first issue is, are they going through the red light by accident, or are they going through on purpose? And everyone will be treated the same. And the goal here, unlike congestion pricing, the goal here is to reduce some of these horrendous accidents that occur when people are speeding. In the Philadelphia area, we've had incidents like this where people sail through a red light and end up in a crash, and sometimes killing people or injuring them. So I think again, the purpose is worthwhile, and the administration of it is part of the problem, and constituents in the communities may raise a ruckus, which is what sounds like happened in Nassau County or Suffolk County. So it's always and especially in New York, a very litigious state. People start talking about lawsuits and other things, and sometimes the local political people will back away because there's so much pressure.
Yeah. Yeah, and to your point, sometimes somebody will slip through a light. Truth be told, I've gotten red light ticket, and this was years ago. And I'm like, I got the thing in the mail. I'm like, what is going on here? Well, what happened was I was driving to work early in the morning, and there was a truck in front of me, and I didn't see, because the truck was so high, I didn't see that the light has just changed. So I just skirted underneath that red light. And same situation, too, when you're going to make a right on red, you have to make a full and complete stop. If you don't, red light camera is going to get you. And I got to believe that that's probably most of the tickets, because you need to sit there for, like 5 seconds just to make sure that you made a full and complete stop. I want to pivot over to some of the questions that we got. And this one is from Lisa, who checks in from Deerfield Beach, Florida. She says, my son is in his first year of community college. Are there usually internships available in urban planning?
Yes. Internships are very important for the students, but also to provide relatively lower cost helpers within planning offices to do various tasks. And I think if they're in a planning program already, the intern opportunities should be well publicized. And the American Planning Association promotes it also. And I never had an internship while I was at Pitt, but I started in working in Nassau County at the Montgomery County Planning Commission, and between the time I finished my coursework in December and the time I started in Montgomery County, I interned for about 2 weeks at a planning consulting firm, Good, Kind, and O'Day, in downtown Manhattan. And that was my only experience as an intern. But it gets you to feel what it's like to work in a planning office, in this case a consulting firm, and also it's good on your resume that you took the time to get involved in professional practice before you showed up for your first job.
Back in the day, I recall many businesses would have interns and they weren't paid. It was just came down to get the experience. Nowadays, I believe by law, some type of compensation, whether it's college credit or whatever it is. When you first began, now I know that you've shared with us a few times that you were thinking about going into a medical field, and then you pivoted over to urban planning. What was the very first thing you did, job-wise, connected to urban planning?
Well, when I joined the Montgomery County Planning Commission staff in Norristown, Pennsylvania, southeastern PA, I was told to do a study of Rahway Avenue in East Norriton Township, adjacent to Norristown. And I went to the study area, which was relatively small, but it was a minority community, and they were somewhat isolated, even they were in a suburban township, because they had a couple of roads, but the roads didn't connect to anything. And so in this case, it wasn't a traffic issue. It was getting them integrated into the surrounding road network and making them feel that they were part of this suburban township. And so I made recommendations to connect the roads, and I think it was eventually implemented. And that was my first experience dealing with public involvement, where people were coming saying, hey, we're isolated here, we need help. And also dealing with local officials and with county people. It was a very good learning experience.
Wow. When you first began, were you nervous in that position?
Well, I'm always nervous in new experiences.
Sure.
But in this case, yes, I was, because at Pitt, I had some experience in working on planning projects and problems, but I felt a little bit less prepared than I should have been. And today, the planning curriculum is much stronger in getting students exposed to technical and policy issues, as well as public involvement. And in those days, some of that was covered academically, and we had a couple of field trips where we saw what was going on in the Pittsburgh area, but it wasn't the same as an internship.
Did you realize at that early time the magnitude of what an urban planner does and how it can really impact thousands and thousands of people? Did you have that feeling, or you just this is what I want to do and I'm just going to do my job?
I wanted to learn what planners did and how they influenced public policy and reacted to citizen comments and local elected officials. And by working at Montgomery County Planning Commission, which had a strong community planning program as well as transportation, I was lucky because that gave me a laboratory to learn how to do the job and what is involved. And so I was very grateful to have that first experience. That later on, I gravitated more into the transportation area, and I left Montgomery County and went to the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission in Philadelphia, the metropolitan planning organization for the 9-county region. And that was a different experience, but it also taught me how to interact with some of the board members and also different counties, how they approach planning, especially Pennsylvania versus New Jersey, because it was a bi-state agency.
It seems like a dicey position to be in, because on one side, you've got a job to do. On the other side, you have lawmakers. On the other side of you, then you have people in the community. And as you said before, it's a big thing, not in my backyard. So it seems, Richard, like a very delicate balance in terms of managing personalities and people. Did you feel like sometimes you were in the middle, getting pulled to one side, then to the other side?
Well, yes, that's part of the experience, and not in my backyard is something you learn pretty quickly if you're advocating for transit-oriented development or higher densities or affordable housing, issues that are bound to produce reactions from the community, especially in the neighborhood where the proposed projects are supposed to be located. That's why it's called Not in My Backyard.
Sure.
And so planning is a challenging experience, but if you get the basics, learning about population and employment numbers and how important they are for the community's setting, the history of the community, and also to realize, as a planner working in this case in a governmental setting, you can't just walk into a room and say, "I'm a planner. You got to listen to me." You need what I used to call friendly persuasion, and it means you work with the local officials, you work with the citizens, and you have to sell your ideas, and sell in a good way, but you have to sell them. You can't just assume they're the greatest thing ever described.
So I want to jump into another question here. By the way, you can always reach us, instantfeedbacksteve@gmail.com. Columbia, South Carolina, we've got Gary, and he says, is there a certification that urban planners must have, and are licenses required?
I wouldn't call them licenses, but to be recognized as a professional planner, you have to take an exam and graduate from just being a planner to, and if you're involved in the American Institute of Certified Planners, which is part of the American Planning Association, you have to attain certain standards, education, and experience. You can't just take the test the minute you walk in from graduate school. You've got to, I can't remember what the number of years, so it's a couple of years. And the first step is becoming an AICP, American Institute of Certified Planners certification. And then after a while, if you're still working in that area, you can earn a FAICP, which is a Fellow of the American Institute of Certified Planners. I have that designation, and
Wow.
There's over 30,000 people who belong to the American Planning Association. About 18,000 are AICPs, and a fewer number are FAICPs. And so there is a certification process, but the other thing is planning schools have to get accreditation from the American Planning Association, and there are lots of requirements there. And so if a school was going to start a planning program, it's important to learn how you get accredited. And when you're accredited, you are first visited. You fill a lot of paperwork out, but then you're visited by a site visitor team of 2 academics and 1 practitioner, and they come and stay for a couple of days to review the program and go over the paperwork and talk to the provost and the dean and the department head and write a report, and that goes into making the recommendation to grant accreditation or reaccreditation, because you can't just do it once and you're done. You've got to come back several years later and do it all over again, because things change and the profession changes their interests.
So it seems reasonable that you should really vet the learning institution that you were going to be attending when it comes to urban planning, not just, make any quick decision to go to this particular school or that one over there. You need to be intentional about where you're going to go.
Yeah, I think that would, if you definitely want to get into the planning profession, you should make sure the school you're going to is accredited or has an accredited planning program. Master's degree as well as undergraduate is sometimes available. And if you start and get a degree that's accredited at the undergraduate level, that would certainly help you going to perhaps a different school where they have a master's program. And but in my case, having decided late that I wanted to be a planner after spending the first couple of years trying to be a doctor, which failed because of poor grades in chemistry, I was lucky to take an urban geography course, and it was taught by a professor in the planning school, and I stayed at Pitt and started in the graduate planning program at Pitt. So a lot of your career decisions are serendipity and fortuitous. Those are the two words. Some things happen that you don't expect, and then if good things happen, it's something you didn't expect either, but you're really happy that it did happen.
So you mentioned about chemistry not being your thing. For me, math was never my thing, and I'm curious.
That was my other bad thing.
Well, okay, you might have answered the question before I got to it. Does urban planning involve a lot of math?
It depends on what you're involved in. If you're doing more of an engineering relationship, it certainly does. But if you're the key thing I always say is you've got to look at the population and employment statistics from the U.S. Census and other sources that describe what's going on in the community. Are they a rapidly growing community? Are they in decline? Are they focused on redevelopment? Or are they dealing with boomtown issues? And that shapes the whole tenor of doing a long-range plan for the community, which sometimes called a comprehensive plan or a master plan. And the long-range plan is usually 20 years time frame. Mm-hmm. You use the population employment numbers to make projections, and that can guide your recommendations in the plan and policy decisions.
It seems like there's a lot of different elements, personality traits even, that come into play for an urban planner. You have to be investigative, so you're always looking around, you're always checking into things. An enterpriser or enterprising, because you're looking at the future and what can be done. And then personality-wise, like we said before, you've got a lot of different things in the mix there. It's not like you're sitting in an office, in a cubicle, sealed up, doing your thing. You're going to town meetings. You have to, connect with lawmakers. A lot going on there. I have a favor to ask, Richard.
Yes.
Could we get you to come back and do a special show really focusing on a lot of the stuff that we're talking about here in terms of the education? We've skimmed it. I'd love to have you come back.
Well, I could, depending on the schedule, and I'm flattered that you'd want me to come back.
Oh, you're fantastic, and you're real, and I truly appreciate the genuineness of you sharing, and obviously it resonates because we've gotten feedback and people asking questions. Would love to have you back, and one more reason why we have you as our professional of the year. You really have a passion for what you're doing, even after the fact, not being in the office, so to speak. You're still looking at what's going on, especially, we started with congestion pricing in New York City. I don't live far from New York City. 10 times more than I do about that issue.
Well, yeah, after being born in Manhattan, I was in Glendale, Queens with my family, and then we moved to Glen Cove. So I experienced the Eastern migration.
Well, I don't travel a lot into the city, and whenever I do, it's train and Uber. So I have to deal with the congestion pricing, but people are doing it every single day. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it, Richard, and looking forward next time we get together.
All right. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. Looking for expert environmental planning? Meet Richard G. Bickel Jr., expert urban and regional planner, now offering consulting services through the University of Pittsburgh. With years of experience in urban development and environmental planning, Richard provides thoughtful, sustainable solutions for today's complex challenges. Contact Richard today, 610-649-9335, to discuss how his expertise can help your next project ahead. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Can I touch this? Where does sand come from? Is this tree good for climbing? What happens if I mix these two things together? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Storing your guns securely is the best way to prevent family fire, including unintentional shootings. For more information on safe gun storage and ways to keep your family safe, visit endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org.
What do we keep in the attic? What's this thing called? Can I ride my bike backwards?
Like I said, kids are curious. It's up to us to keep them safe. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.